All right, welcome back from that break, talking about Bracket Family, and it's time for us to have our discussion segment on the show, talking about New Day. And today, what are we looking at? We are looking at the Nigerian government and the ECOWAS Court directive on Sambo Dasuki. Apart from the ECOWAS Court directive, there have been some bail conditions, and I think he met the bail condition, talking about Sambo Dasuki. But as we speak, he is still languishing in the custody of the DSS. Is this right for our democracy and all of that? We have a guest in the house who will help us, dig deep into all of these court orders that are not being obeyed, or they are being set aside. There are also reports reaching us that the federal government is saying that the ECOWAS ruling is just a decision and not, a ruling that they have to abide by. But these and all and more we're going to look at today, and we have in the studio with us Barrister Frank Tete, who will be doing justice to this very, very important topic. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Fires. Good morning.
Morning.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right. Okay, let's look at the ECOWAS ruling. When the ruling came, everybody felt a sigh of relief that, okay, after spending so much time in the custody of the EFCC, maybe it's a time for Dasuki to reunite with his family and all of that, in as much as, he has not been tried yet, or maybe in as much as the court right here in Nigeria has not found him guilty. And when the ruling came, we also saw that it was not obeyed. You are a barrister. Do you think this is healthy for a nation like Nigeria?
Well, thank you. We are still searching for answers to that question. The reason is it beats all imagination why a government that enjoys the benefits of law is now reducing the effect of law, reducing the influence of law in governance in court. Law is dispassionate. It doesn't really, it's not sentimental, it's not emotional. If the law says this man is free, no matter how much you hate him, you have to set him free. Now, law operates not with might. It operates not with the concept that, so long as you have force and you are able to dictate, that is right. No. Law has basic standards by which it stipulates basic standards, and then authorities and individuals comply with those stipulated standards. Now, the standard is there's a presumption of innocence in our country under Section 35 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as altered. Now, there is also a presumption that by that presumption of innocence, a man is considered free until you prove that he is guilty. And on that basis, he's entitled to bail. Now, that's a foundation of law all over the world. Now, especially in our country, when we run what we call the adversarial justice system, where the person who alleges that you are a criminal will now have to prove, not just close to proving that you're a criminal, but beyond all doubt, beyond what they refer to as beyond all reasonable doubt. As it is, Dasuki by our country's laws is a free man, is an innocent man until he's proven guilty. By that same law, he's entitled to every instrument or everything that he needs by our constitution to defend himself. Dasuki can even ask the president or any person in authority or any individual to supply him materials with which he can use to defend himself. So there is an unusual degree of protection for anybody who has been alleged to have committed a crime. Now, it's unfortunate that for one reason or the other, Dasuki is still in detention. But don't forget, there are certain offenses for which anybody will be charged and he would not be entitled to bail. One of them is murder. And then another one is treason, that he's trying to overthrow the government of Nigeria, making the president to be so afraid that the president runs away from Nigeria. That kind of crime or offense, when charged with, you may not be entitled to bail. It also doesn't mean that you won't get granted bail. There are people who have been charged for murder in this country, but for some special reasons, maybe health reasons, or maybe some other very reasonable grounds, they have been granted bail even when they are charged for murder. So in the case of Dasuki, it has to do with monies that pass through his hands. And don't forget, they are contributory negligence on the part of some persons who ought to have also overseen that process. But we're not even going there now. We have judgments of the High Court, judgments of the Federal High Court granting him bail. There was a concept which we learned in course of our development in democracy as a country, that even if it's an idiot or even if it's a donkey that gives a judgment or a ruling of a court, so long as it proceeds from a Nigerian court, it must first of all be obeyed. You first of all obey it. Then if you want to challenge it, you go on appeal. So, right now, we do not know of any substantive appeal against the bail that have been, the bail conditions or the bail that has been granted to Dasuki. But even at that, when you approach the ECOWAS court, there's no appeal against the decision of the ECOWAS court. The ECOWAS court is basically a human rights court, even though it also serves to interpret the revised treaty of the ECOWAS. Now, it interprets it as against the rights of the states, between the states and the community citizens. We who are members of the state that belongs to ECOWAS, we are known as community citizens, and the court is known as community court. That court serves just those two purposes: human rights, protection of human rights, and then the interpretation of the rights emanating from the revised ECOWAS treaty. So, importantly, it is in the don't forget, the ECOWAS court, in being a human rights court, is meant to enforce the rights that are defined under the African Charter and African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which was enacted under the former OAU, which is now the AU. Now, don't forget that ECOWAS is an economic union. It is for one purpose of improving the living standards of the people of the region by liberalizing trade, breaking down barriers in movement, in free flow of both goods and people, to improve the living standards and then the economy of the region. Now, you wonder why they set up a court. They set up a court to give the impression that, look, justice is guaranteed and that the court will protect the rights of people. And as such, that boosts economic activity. That boosts economic confidence. Nothing boosts economic confidence more than when conflicts are easily resolved in a civilized manner. So that's the essence. So when we don't obey, as a country, don't obey the judgments of that court, it is just another way of saying that all the money we have spent on ECOWAS as the major funder of ECOWAS since 1975 to date are a waste of funds, because the purpose of ECOWAS has been, especially the court, has been defeated time and again. Let me go straight by letting you know that courts generally are not very they are not a repository of force. They don't have a force of their own. They don't have power. I'm talking in terms of reality as a lawyer who practices every day, who goes to court, obtains judgment or obtains an order. The court, you can see the court gives a semblance of civilization. You meet there, you see a judge sitting with a policeman as an orderly, just a symbol of the state authority to use force, and then you see the court officials and then their lawyers advocating. When the court gives judgment, because there's this understanding of what we refer to as law and order. In law, we refer to as public order. Because there is a commitment on the part of government, a commitment on the part of all the other authorities and people of the state to maintain public order, then now becomes, the commitment is taken further to obeying whatever the court says. So any disobedience to court order is a direct invitation to anarchy. So here we are not supposed to be talking about Dasuki. It's not Dasuki. Our worry is for more. We are missing the opportunity of further strengthening the cement of our society, our social fabric, as being law. Anything less than that is, government according to one man's whim and caprices, no, or government according to what some people think is right or what some people think is not right. No, that will be uncertain. We need some measure of certainty. We need some measure of stability for us to have what we call public order. That's elementary law. So it is when we have that understanding, that kind of culture, then we can make progress as fast as any country that has made in the world.
But what do you think is responsible for, not allowing the executive to obey simple court orders?
No, who's not allowing the executive? They see, look at it here. It is the wrong understanding, I would say the misunderstanding of power. Power. Those days, when you elementary political science, they tell you that authority is power that is clothed with legitimacy. That is, you legitimately use power. But on the other hand, force is a different thing. Only the state controls force, and it is called organized force. If the three arms of government were to have three different forces, then you would know that there could be anarchy. But it is the executive that controls force, while the judiciary simply interprets the law. Now, when the simple understanding, and that's why we think that presidential federalism may not be the best way to run our country, because when you concentrate powers in the person of the president, and you in a federation where power is supposed to be donated and some are left for the federating unit, but unfortunately all the powers, if not majority of the powers, are concentrated in the center, in the federal government, that controls the police, that controls the army, that controls force. So when there is a strong temptation to think that the control of force might is right, and it's very dangerous to democracy. It's very dangerous to any organized society. So those that control force must know that the force is given to them as a trust, and the trust is that they would use the force to ensure compliance with the law. If you look at our constitution, the beginning statement is we the people enact and give to ourselves this constitution. So power actually resides on the people who have donated it in a group of trusted men. They should use it in such a way that it does not disrupt the polity. So the issue of obeying court orders goes beyond Dasuki and any other person who has obtained judgment or orders of court that are yet to be implemented. It is a very dangerous signal. The best thing we can do is to realize that the control of force is very transient, either for the current administration or the subsequent administration or the past administration. But must we always use power in this fashion to riding roughshod or the provisions of the law and legal procedure? It will not be in the best interest of our country.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned treason and murder to be the two cases where bail might not be granted. For you, how would you class Dasuki's case?
I didn't frame the charges against Dasuki. But if you look at the charges against Dasuki, the first one being illegal possession of firearms.
Oops, yeah.
And the court granted him bail on self-recognition. Because if you look at his personality, he was in charge of national security. And some people were saying that, and then he was in the army. He referred to those rifles as service rifles that were given to him or to protect his interest while he was serving. And by the way, he just left office while he was arrested for possessing firearms. And then the march talks about money laundering and diversion of public resources to the tune of $2.1 billion that was meant for prosecution of the war against insurgency in the northeastern part of Nigeria. These are not, it depends. If like I said, law is not sentimental. It's not, because if you become sentimental and say, oh no, so money that would have taken out Boko Haram was expended for prayers, expended for sharing to friends and political associates, no, that person should die. In fact, the person contributed to the murder and death of the people in northeastern Nigeria. That's not the law. That's not factual. The fact is that the man misappropriated, was alleged to have misappropriated certain amounts of money. So I have always maintained this, and that more investigation should be made, because we had a CBN, we had other financial
institutions,
yes, who watch over financial processes. How on earth could $2.1 billion be stolen by one man and nobody raised an alarm? So that's why I mentioned the other day that even all of us sitting here should be on trial. If we, as a member of a country, and $2.1 billion, permit me to express it this way, $2.1 billion is being stolen by one man, and everybody is quiet. Your journalists are quiet, lawyers are quiet, the public servants there in CBN who pay out the money, or all other banks and the rest, despite all the money laundering laws we have, despite the financial regulation we have under the Money Laundering Act and the EFCC Act and the ICPC Act, and then even with the Freedom of Information Act, and nobody raised the alarm. It is after the man has successfully stolen $2.1 billion that we now say, okay, let's deal with him. He's a criminal. Is this? No, we should really look inward. But nevertheless, when he has not committed murder, it's morally reprehensible that money meant to protect our citizens were alleged to have been stolen. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. But the law, the EFCC has not charged him for murder. The DSS hasn't charged him for murder. Neither has the police. These are the prosecutorial agencies. Neither has the AGF, the Attorney General Federation, done so. So it's still less than a reason for him to be granted. To be denied bail. But as a matter of fact, he has been granted bail by our courts, and that can actually be prevented in terms of his bail, his compliance to the bail that has been granted by the courts in this country could have been actually challenged, but that has not been the case.
All right. I want you to look at it from this angle. What can we do to probably bend the hands of the government to heed the verdict so far, looking at both the judiciary and also probably the International Court of Justice? Do we need to go that far to make the federal government?
Certainly not. We must appreciate something, that we must do everything possible to maintain order. If one arm of government is being disobedient, it's being inconsiderate, and it's also being disregarding of the other powers and functions of the other arm of government. What I think is a problem is the docility on the part of the stakeholders.
Okay.
The people, especially the people,
okay,
then the other arms of government. So let's take this for example. If we have an executive that consistently fails to obey the judgment of court, the court should be very firm. I would not continue to sit as a judge if the orders I make will not be obeyed. If I am a patriotic citizen, I will resign. Not because I wouldn't want to do anything. I wouldn't want to go and, as a judge, go and protest and lie on the gates of Aso Rock and say, look, if you don't obey my court orders, you guys are not living here. You better drive your car over my head. Some people can go to that extreme. But the truth is that the pretension must stop. If the judges before now in this country have been very vociferous, look at the code, judicial code of conduct. They are not prevented from forming trade unions. They're not prevented from forming associations. They should have before now said, look, we are not being patriotic here. We get paid for doing this job, and here we are. We give judgments and orders, and they are not being obeyed. I don't think something drastic has to be done. If they had done that, I'm not sure what happened to them a week or two ago, less than 2 weeks ago, when their houses were invaded and humiliated, intimidated, which is again terrible for our judicial and for our legal system. That wouldn't have happened. So docility encourages this form of disregard for court orders. Now, on the part of the people should, be informed about what belongs to them. They should know, under Section 14 of the Constitution, sovereignty, that is the ultimate power in this state called Nigeria, belongs to the people, and government and any other authority derive their power from the people, though that power must be exercised according to the Constitution. Are you getting me? That's what Section 14 says. The people don't even know that they own the power. The people, there's a movement called people power. It doesn't have to be disruptive. It doesn't have to lead to situations like we had in the Arab Spring. But the people ought to be able to call their representative and say, look, what's the meaning of this? The people from Dasuki constituency, this still belongs to them. So if a man has committed a crime, let him be tried and punished so that he'll be purged of the crime he has committed. It doesn't make him less of a citizen. It doesn't make him, it doesn't make him a non-citizen anymore, a non-indigene. You call his representative in the National Assembly and say, look, I want this man tried. The push, you see, there must be. So when we talk about the people are organized. They are organized in a form of representation in the National Assembly or in the House of Assembly. Now, that's the way that becomes the extension of the docility we're talking about. Even the National Assembly wouldn't want to say, look, we the people say you obey this court order because it is according to the Constitution. Now, they don't care. So when everybody minds his own business, just like the ordinary people do, because what they do, they just go to go through the humdrum of earning a livelihood, and then the courts, they are okay by just making pronouncement, and then National Assembly is okay by just grappling with the responsibility and perks of their offices. We'll move forward because the executive knows that, man, it has a great responsibility to deliver certain programs within 4 years, and it doesn't have the time to waste. So if anybody wants to use the law to short circuit it, or rather make it slow down, they will push the person aside. If I left to the executive, they don't want to hear things about rights and whether human rights or whatever rights. They just want to achieve the goals that they have. But no, government knows. I mean, the Constitution presumes and knows, because it's from time immemorial, that anybody you give power would always want power and will use it arbitrarily because it's a part of the human nature. So, with that person you give power, create checks. So, even a minister, even a permanent secretary or an ordinary worker in the national, in the civil service, has serious restrictions. Our country, I keep saying, look at our laws. I've done comparative international law. I've seen that there's hardly any country that has protected its citizens with its quality of laws like Nigeria. Great country, fantastic laws, great freedom. You wonder why people travel abroad, they make all the money, and they still want to come back here with all the bad names, with all the bad image they say we have, because there is a lot of protection for people here. There is a reason why the law contemplates that, because it believes that the freedom to enjoy our God-given rights is the ultimate aim of government. I mean, putting together government, whether it's executive, legislature, and judiciary. But the executive arm is, the executive arm is carried away by politics. And also, it also affects the legislature. So we should come back to the basic understanding of how government works. It was a very serious disservice to our educational system when we abandoned certain courses, certain basic courses, civics, French, history. It was terrible. We were headed for the rocks when we did that. And some of us who are listening to some conspiracy theories believe that it was deliberate, because an empowered people, an informed people would hold government too accountable, that government needs to work very, very hard in order to be able to deliver on its promises.
Yeah, do you also believe that, according to the revelation of the wife of the president, that his administration has actually been hijacked? Do you think that this is also another, another plot to really render the judiciary, very, very incompetent, or make them look like a bunch of people who doesn't know what exactly they're doing?
In every administration, there's usually a caucus, there's usually a kitchen cabinet, there's usually a cabal that actually runs things. Let me express it that way in quote. Every administration. Now, that's why the personality of the president is very important. We need a president who is smart enough, who should be smart enough to even protect himself from the people that he has empowered to advise him or to assist him. Those are the most dangerous people. If those people mean well, all will be well. Now, let us compare between President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, through former President Yaradua, Goodluck Jonathan, and the current president. In Obasanjo's case, you saw that he was a president that was very assertive. You saw that it appears he kept on putting his ministers on trial. That is, he set them up to work. So they were directly responsible to him in a way. Different under President Yaradua, he gave them a lot of freedom. You saw under President Yaradua the freedom with which the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice operated by. Now, Obasanjo had more direct involvement in government. Now, under President Jonathan, I would say it was worse because it was he maintained a very laissez-faire approach to government or administration, trusting his aides, so anything could happen. Because that's the reason why somebody could just be alleged to have stolen 2.1 billion under your very watch. $2.1 billion, not 2.1 billion naira, brother. As president, it shows that you overtrusted people. And here we have our president who, for so many reasons, now has inherited so much problems that he didn't really prepare for. See, I mean, even you say he prepared for the problems of the corruption and the rest, he didn't prepare for the fact that Nigeria was going to go into a recession or we're not going to have money. Burdened. And then he would need to rely on so many people as special assistants and assistants. Now, those persons, unfortunately, they don't know how to make distinction between politics and governance. Now, the time of politics is over. It's time for governance. You have won. Now, they are still politicking in the villa. They are still politicking within the federal secretariat, trying to see politics is about who gets what, when, and how. Still trying to find who gets. No, that's not what we are after now. After how to carry out government programs for the benefit of the people. Now, the truth about it is that it is not, if those people who really are the core of the President Buhari's administration have decided to pursue personal agenda, then it's troublesome. And I must commend the president's wife. The president's wife was fantastic, and those are the kind of people we need, who are in power, who not afraid of anything for the sake of good. I think the woman has simply vindicated herself and simply extricated herself from whatever blame. She has removed herself because she is seeing an injustice. Because let me tell you, politics, those people who came out in the street, who you saw the fervent pursuit of the Buhari presidency by the ordinary people. The elitist class didn't want it because, especially when they kept on happening a number of negatives. But the ordinary people didn't care. They just wanted liberation. They cried. They did everything, and then suddenly, the government programs are not skewed in such a way that promotes or protects or empowers them. They don't see their representatives in the federal cabinet. We should be able to see some ordinary people from nowhere in the cabinet. And then such ordinary people know that we represent ordinary interests. But here you see the cabinet made up of eminent lawyers, made up of all those, high-class people who were not, where were they when mobilizing the poor? This is supposed to be a pro-poor government, a government that takes care of the poor, that promised them 5,000 naira monthly, a government that, gave so much hope to the poor. And then nobody is saying anything about them anymore. Don't even go about the organized camp. Don't go about talking about the organized campaign personnel who also cry neglect. And then the president's wife calmly said, look, she doesn't like this. And I think that she was actually warning the cabal Not even the president. I think the president will love her more for that. Because the president needs to be protected. And that's and also, when the president, has also acknowledged, because it depends, it's a matter of perspective, that this woman should look after me. And I'll tell you the truth. No, there's no better way to look after the president than warning those people who are working against his interest. She has actually exposed them.
Well, he also said that she belongs to the kitchen and the other room.
Well, I think the president was being jocular about that. He was obviously being jocular, because the truth about it is that I read the write-up by one of the president apologists by saying that, okay, if she belonged to the kitchen, would she have a master's degree? Would she have all of the achievements she has made all this while? So certainly the president was being jocular, but I hope that he corrects that impression, because another man also said that, look, you went to, if your wife belongs to the kitchen, why did you travel all these hundreds of miles to another man's wife to go and see another man's wife in Germany? If that man's wife was in the kitchen, would you go do all this effort to go and see her? But I think the president was being jocular. But truth about it is that the president's wife has been fantastically patriotic.
All right, as we wrap up, just to go back to the Dasuki saga, for you, what should be the way forward now, looking at the seeming unwillingness of the federal government to let him
see, maybe my advice.
All right.
It's not really my advice. The president.
All right.
That's why I think that some people are not promoting the interest of the president. It costs nothing. It even boosts the image of Nigeria, boosts the image of the president, if you obey court orders. So the way forward is for the Attorney General of the Federation to immediately order the release of Sambo Dasuki.
Do you think he's going to do that?
If he's not doing that, then he's working against the interest of President Buhari.
He's even working against the interest of the judges that were picked up.
Well, that is what the judges claim.
Yes.
That's a different matter altogether. But my learned senior, who is now in Georgia, my first employer in this town, who is now in Georgia in Ogun State, had once said something which I appreciated. He said the government is as good as the Attorney General. So it's the Attorney General that determines the quality of the government. He is in control by the profession. He is the one that gives directives on how I practice law. He is saddled with a lot of responsibilities. He is one, if not the only minister that was mentioned in the Constitution under Section 50. Very powerful minister. He determines the quality, and the quality of governance actually is determined by law. Are you getting me? That is law enforcement, law making, law enforcement, compliance with law. Law, you can use the instrumentality of law to determine economic progress, to determine political stability. Law is the foundation of our society, and he is the chief law officer of the Federation. So, and also the chief advisor to the president. For goodness sake, we know, basically, fundamentally, that when you create the impression, like they give us in the United States, that, oh, this is a country that is governed by law. Our own, we're even so committed to be governed by law that we describe ourselves a republic. That is a federal republic. It's not a federal monarchy. It's not a federal dictatorship. It's not a federal oligarchy. It is the federal republic. That is a country governed by the people, by the public, according to law. It is only in the interests of the current administration for it to create the impression. Let me tell you the truth. When you give that impression, check what will happen to Naira value in a very short time. Dasuki released. The government comes and fumes that it is angry that the court has delivered this, but because it is a government of Nigeria, it is obeying the order. People will say, so you court can actually direct government, put our money there and let us do the right thing. If the government goes too far, we'll go to court. After all, the court can tell it to stop and it will stop. That is what we call confidence building in our economy. There is a very strong link between politics and economics. When the politics reflects that of freedom, reflects that of protection for the ordinary person, the protection for businesses, the economy will grow. Now, the truth about it is that many countries survive without big resources like oil. They survive with just an organized system. Take for example Switzerland, which is also a federation like us. What do they have? Other countries like the Netherlands, what do they really have? Even though they do have some oil, but you find that look at monies that come from the organizing of the port. Look at Lagos. Look at the Niger Delta. Look at our land borders. Once you give this impression that law is supreme above everyone else, check what will happen.
All right, Barrister Frank Tete, we sincerely want to thank you for finding our time to be here today. It's been quite expository, if you ask me, and we hope that some other time we'll be able to come back here to say, yes, the government has started obeying court orders, maybe in the nearest future. Thank you so very much. All right, this is how much time will permit us on the show today, but we are not just going to leave like that without telling you that Nigeria will definitely be great again. But before I do that, I would like Anthony to give his last shot.
Well, I think stay counting on the federal government, hoping that they listen to Frank Tete and probably taking something away from what he said, the fact that if they do obey court orders, it's going to have a ripple effect on the country, on this different aspects of our national lives, and we hope that they do the right thing so that Nigeria can be truly great again.
Yeah, for Nigeria to be truly great again, the executive needs to do the needful. And coming from our resource person today, if you obey the constitution, you obey court orders, we might just be out of recession in a couple of months' time. Who knows? Maybe that's just the solution we all have been waiting for, and here it has been released. Obey court orders, and we'll be better off as a nation. All right, we'll come your way again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock, through 9:30. I am Pius Samuel. Have a good day.